They say the most dangerous lie is the one wrapped in confidence. That was the case with Marcus Hill, a respected businessman in Atlanta. On the surface, Marcus was everything his community admired. Sharp suits, polished words, a smile that could win anyone over. But behind the smile was arrogance, a man who believed rules never applied to him. And then there was Tanya Brooks, a young black woman in her early 30s, hard-working, determined, but constantly overlooked. Tanya wasn't born into privilege like Marcus. She worked her way through school, joined the police force, and clawed her way into the homicide division. But every step forward came with whispers behind her back. She's too young, too inexperienced. She only got the job because they needed diversity. Her first big case? Marcus Hill. The crime was brutal. A woman found dead in her apartment. Strangled, no forced entry, no signs of robbery. Just silence and a single broken glass on floor. The victim was Danielle Carter, a teacher loved by her students, a woman with no known enemies. When Marcus Hill was brought in for questioning, he laughed, not nervously, confidently. He leaned back in his chair, smirking, because he believed he had the perfect alibi. Marcus, detective, I was at a business dinner that night, surrounded by people. You can ask anyone. There's no way I could have been there. And on paper, it looked true. Witnesses confirmed they saw him. The restaurant cameras showed him entering, smiling, even shaking hands. Marcus believed the case would crumble right there. But Tanya had learned something in her years of being underestimated. Confidence is often a disguise of the guilty. Tanya's colleagues doubted her. The lead detective even pulled her aside. Detective Harris. Listen, Brooks, this guy is connected. He donates to politicians. He's got lawyers on speed dial. Don't waste your time chasing him. You'll ruin your career. But Tanya refused to back down. She studied Marcus's alibi, frame by frame. Something didn't sit right. Yes, Marcus was at the restaurant, but only for 2 hours. The victim's estimated time of death? A 4-hour window. That left plenty of time unaccounted for. Still, no one wanted to hear her theory. Too risky. Not enough evidence. You're chasing shadows. But Tanya had grown up with shadows. She knew how to navigate them. And then the break came. A small detail almost everyone overlooked. Danielle's phone. It had been wiped clean, as if someone tried to erase messages. But Tanya managed to recover fragments from the cloud. Among them was a single text that would unravel everything. Text from Marcus, the night of the murder, 8:47 p.m. I'll be there soon. Don't tell anyone. Her heart pounded as she read it. He wasn't careful. He wasn't invincible. His arrogance left a crack. When Tanya presented the text to her team, the room went silent. It was the first time Marcus's perfect mask slipped. Still, his lawyers argued it was circumstantial. Maybe he planned a visit, but never showed. You can't prove anything. But Tanya wasn't done. She dug deeper. The restaurant cameras showed Marcus entering, but leaving earlier than witnesses remembered. A valet ticket confirmed his car was retrieved at 9:15 p.m. The victim's neighbors reported hearing a loud thud in the apartment just after 9:40 p.m. The timeline clicked together like puzzle pieces. But the final blow, the one that turned whispers into a roar, came from Marcus's own phone. Tanya subpoenaed his cell tower records. And there it was, a ping placing him near Danielle's apartment at 9:38 p.m. His alibi wasn't just cracked. It was shattered. When confronted, Marcus's arrogance turned into rage. He slammed the table, shouting, threatening lawsuits, calling the police department corrupt. But Tanya sat across from him, calm, collected, her eyes steady. Tanya, you thought you were smarter than everyone else. But you forgot one thing. The truth leaves footprints. And yours are all over this crime. The trial became a spectacle. Cameras lined the courthouse steps. Reporters whispered about Tanya, the rookie detective who brought down Marcus Hill. Marcus's defense team was ruthless, attacking Tanya's credibility, mocking her experience. They tried to paint her as emotional, too eager for attention. But every time, Tanya countered with cold, hard facts. And then came the text message. Projected, on a giant screen for the jury to see. "I'll be there soon. Don't tell anyone." It echoed in the courtroom like thunder. Marcus's head dropped. For the first time, he looked small. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours. Verdict, guilty. As Marcus was led away in handcuffs, he turned to Tanya with a look of pure disbelief. How could she, the underdog, the woman everyone dismissed, be the one to end him? And Tanya? She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply whispered, "Justice doesn't care about power. It cares about truth." The community, once blinded by Marcus's wealth and influence, saw him for who he truly was. And they saw Tanya, not as a rookie, not as a diversity hire, but as a detective who refused a bow, who followed the truth until justice was served. He thought his alibi was perfect. He thought money and connections could shield him. But one text, one overlooked detail, unraveled his empire. The lesson? No lie is perfect. No alibi is unbreakable. And no one, no matter how powerful, is above the truth. Long before Tanya Brooks sat across from Marcus Hill in that interrogation room, she had already faced a lifetime of battles most people never saw. She grew up on the south side of Atlanta, in a neighborhood where gunshots rang louder than lullabies and where opportunity was more rumor than reality. Her father worked 3 jobs: mechanic, janitor, delivery driver, while her mother held the family together like glue, running a tiny soul food kitchen out of their home. Tanya remembered late nights when her mother would look at her across the table, eyes heavy but strong, and say, "Baby, people gone tell you what you can't do your whole life. Don't you ever let them decide your story for you." That stuck with Tanya. It's what pushed her through the academy, what kept her studying homicide textbooks while others slept, what gave her the patience to sit through insults, dismissals, and smirks from men who thought a black woman didn't belong at the table. So when Marcus Hill smirked in her face, treating her like she was nothing more than a nuisance, it didn't break her. It fueled her. Marcus Hill wasn't just a businessman. He was a master manipulator. He knew how to play both sides of conversation, charming the wealthy, intimidating the poor, and keeping his name clean while others did his dirty work. At community events, he donated laptops to schools. At private parties, he bragged about how untouchable he was. He knew politicians on a first-name basis, and rumor had it he funded more than one campaign under the table. So when Danielle Carter was found dead, Marcus believed he could buy silence. He made phone calls, promised favors, and smiled as if justice was just another deal to close. The arrogance was staggering, and Tanya saw right through it. When Tanya started connecting Marcus to crime, not everyone was on her side. Some in the community didn't want to believe it. Marcus? Nah, not him. He gives out scholarships. He's one of the good ones. You're just jealous 'cause he made it out. But others whispered the truth. They knew Marcus's charm was a mask. They'd seen how he treated women behind closed doors, how he snapped at waiters when no one was watching, how he had a temper that no amount of money could bury. For Tanya, the hardest part wasn't just proving Marcus was guilty. It was standing firm when half the people around her wanted her to back off. When Tanya uncovered that single text, "I'll be there soon. Don't tell anyone," she knew she had gold in her hands. But even gold doesn't shine unless you polish it. She worked tirelessly, piecing together the timeline, the valet ticket, the cell tower records, the neighbor's testimony. Every detail she uncovered made Marcus's perfect alibi weaker. But it wasn't just about evidence. It was about exposing the psychology of arrogance. Marcus believed he was too smart to get caught, too powerful to be challenged. He left that text because he thought no one would dig deep enough to find it. He underestimated Tanya. When Marcus was brought back in for questioning after the text was revealed, the atmosphere shifted. No more smug smirks. No more casual charm. He leaned forward now, voice sharp, trying to intimidate Tanya. "Marcus, you don't know who you're dealing with. I can make one phone call and end your career." "Tanya, calmly, you can make all the calls you want, but that won't change where you were the night Danielle died." For the first time, Marcus's mask cracked. He slammed his fist on the table, his face red. That moment wasn't just about evidence. It was about dominance. Marcus wanted control. Tanya refused to give it, and in that refusal, the balance of power shifted. But Tanya knew one thing: arrogance doesn't collapse in a single day. Marcus still had lawyers, connections, and money. He could drag this out, spin narratives, even turn the community against her if he wanted. And that's exactly what he tried. Rumors started spreading about Tanya. Anonymous tips came in questioning her competence. She even found a threatening note on her car windshield one night: "Walk away before it's too late." Her supervisor urged her to let it go. The stress was heavy. Nights were sleepless. But Tanya remembered her mother's words. She wasn't fighting just for Danielle Carter. She was fighting for every underdog who had been silenced, ignored, or underestimated. She wasn't backing down. Marcus Hill walked into the courtroom with a smile on his face. Not the nervous grin of a man who feared conviction, but the smug confidence of someone who thought the system was built for him. He wore a tailored navy suit, his Rolex flashing under the lights, his lawyers trailing behind like shadows. To the press, he was still the successful entrepreneur, the community benefactor, the man being targeted by a jealous detective. His legal team fed reporters lines about overreach and circumstantial evidence. They painted Tanya as an inexperienced officer trying to make a name for herself. It was insult layered on insult, and yet Tanya didn't react. She knew something Marcus didn't: arrogance blinds. The louder he bragged, the more he slipped. Before the trial even began, Marcus tried to manipulate the system. His lawyers filed motions to suppress the text evidence. They claimed it was taken out of context, that it didn't prove anything. He pushed for delays, trying to stretch the case until Tanya slipped or the public lost interest. And behind closed doors, Marcus whispered to officials. He shook hands with city leaders, made promises of campaign donations, hinted that convicting would make them lose a good man. For a while, it looked like it might work. Tanya's requests for certain warrants were denied. Files went missing in the clerk's office. A witness suddenly recanted their testimony after a mysterious deposit showed up in their bank account. To anyone else, it might have been discouraging. To Tanya, it was proof. Marcus was scared. Tanya didn't have Marcus's money. She didn't have his connections. But what she did have was grit and an eye for detail. She spent long nights poring over phone records, credit card statements, and security footage. Where Marcus used his wealth to close doors, Tanya used persistence to pry open windows. One night, while re-examining hours of grainy surveillance footage from a gas station near Danielle Carter's apartment, she spotted something most detectives had missed: Marcus's black BMW pulling into the lot at 11:47 p.m. The timestamp matched almost perfectly with the time Danielle's neighbors heard an argument. It was small, but small things add up. When Tanya presented this to the prosecution team, even they hesitated. "Prosecutor, it's good, but we can't go up against a man like Marcus Hill with scraps. He'll bury us." "Tanya, then let me keep digging. Every lie he tells leave a crack. All we need is one clean break." She was right, and the cracks were spreading. During a private conversation caught on a wiretap, one of the few warrants Tanya managed to push through, Marcus was overheard saying to an associate, "They ain't got nothing on me. It's just some girl detective. She doesn't know who she's messing with." It was meant as an insult, but in court, it became evidence of his dismissive attitude. Proof that he didn't see law enforcement as a threat. The jury leaned in when that recording played. For the first time, Marcus's smile faltered. The breakthrough came not from some flashy CSI-style moment, but from Tanya's persistence. She re-examined Danielle's phone records and noticed a pattern. Every time Marcus lied about his location, his phone pinged a tower close to Danielle's neighborhood. The data painted a map that contradicted every word of his alibi. But Tanya didn't just want to prove Marcus was there. She wanted to show the jury the arrogance behind the crime. She gathered Danielle's final text, Marcus's broken alibi, the gas station footage, and the dismissive wiretap audio. Piece by piece, she built not just a case, but a story. And when she put it together, it revealed something chilling. Marcus hadn't just been careless. He had been confident. So confident, he believed the rules didn't apply to him. Still, Marcus wasn't finished. His lawyers attacked Tanya personally, questioning her credibility. They brought up minor disciplinary actions from her rookie days, tried to paint her as overzealous and unqualified. One day, after a particularly grueling cross-examination, Tanya sat alone in her car, head on the steering wheel. For a moment, the doubt crept in. Could she really take down a man like Marcus Hill? And then she remembered her mother's voice. Baby, people gone, tell you what you can't do your whole life. Don't you ever let them decide your story for you. She sat up straight. She wasn't done. By the time the prosecution rested their case, Marcus still wore that smile. But the jurors didn't smile back. They leaned toward Tanya's story, not his. The weight was shifting. And then came the turning point. One final text that Marcus thought had been erased forever. A text buried deep in Danielle's phone backups. It was a message Marcus sent the night of the murder. Keep quiet or this won't end well. It wasn't just evidence. It was motive. It was threat. It was arrogance in black and white. When Tanya placed that text on the screen, the room went silent. Perfect. Now we're at the courtroom showdown where all the tension we've been building explodes. This is where the arrogance of Marcus finally collides with the persistence of Tanya. The courtroom was electric. You could feel it in the stillness. The kind of silence that only happens when everyone is holding their breath. Marcus Hill sat at the defense table, his suit crisp, his gold watch gleaming, his smirk still hanging on his face like armor. But behind his eyes, you could see the cracks. Tanya had done what no one else thought possible. She had cornered him. The prosecution pulled up the recovered message on the courtroom projector. The words appeared in big, bold letters for everyone to see. Keep quiet or this won't end well. It was a direct message Marcus had sent Danielle Carter the night she died. The jurors leaned forward. Some even exchanged glances. Everyone knew what that meant. It wasn't just coincidence. It wasn't just presence. It was intimidation. It was a threat. It was motive. Marcus shifted in his seat, the smirk finally faltering. His lawyer jumped up, objecting furiously. Defense attorney, that text proves nothing. Words can be taken out of context. It doesn't establish guilt. But Tanya had anticipated this. She'd built her case like a fortress, brick by brick. The prosecutor calmly replied, Prosecutor, taken with the defendant's false alibi, the surveillance footage, the phone tower pings, and the threatening wiretap, this text is not an isolated incident. It's the culmination of a pattern that shows Marcus Hill thought he was untouchable. The judge nodded. The jury listened. The tide had shifted. When Tanya was called to the stand, Marcus's defense team tried to tear her apart. Defense attorney, Detective Price, isn't it true you were disciplined once from his handling evidence as a rookie officer? Tanya didn't flinch. She looked the attorney dead in the eye. Tanya, yes, and I learned from it. That's why I triple-checked every piece of evidence in this case. Because men like Marcus Hill rely on people like me making mistakes. This time I didn't. The jury's eyes widened. Her honesty didn't weaken her. It made her stronger. And across the room, Marcus's jaw tightened. Up until this point, Marcus had been the one with control. He had the money, the influence, the arrogance. But now, in this courtroom, none of that mattered. Here, the truth mattered. Every time Marcus's lawyers tried to spin the narrative, Tanya's steady testimony cut it down. Every time Marcus smirked at the jury, they glanced back at the damning evidence. For the first time in his life, Marcus wasn't writing the story. Tanya was. What made it even more powerful was the irony. Marcus thought his money and charm would shield him. He thought Tanya was beneath him, a rookie detective who didn't know her place. But it was Tanya, the underdog, the underestimated one, the one he laughed off, who had uncovered the single text that unraveled everything. The very arrogance that made him sloppy became the rope that tied the noose around his neck. When the prosecution gave their final words, they didn't just talk about evidence. They talked about power. Prosecutor, this case is about more than one man and one crime. It's about what happens when someone believes they're above the law. It's about whether arrogance and privilege can silence the truth. Detective Tanya Price refused. The courtroom had fallen silent. Only the soft humming of the overhead lights broke the stillness. Darius Johnson, the young black defense attorney, stood tall at the front. He wasn't supposed to be here, at least not according to his opponent, District Attorney Marcus Steele. Steele had spent weeks mocking him, dismissing him, belittling him. To Steele, Darius was just another young, inexperienced lawyer who should have stayed in the shadows. But today, the shadows were no longer his home. Today, he carried the truth, and the truth was about to cut sharper than any knife. The case seemed airtight against Darius's client, 22-year-old Malik Thompson. Malik had been accused of murdering a wealthy store owner, Mr. Raymond Whitaker, during what prosecutors claimed was an armed robbery. All the evidence appeared to point to him. Eyewitnesses, circumstantial clues, even a timeline that seemed impossible to dispute. But something was off. From the beginning, Darius noticed cracks in Steele's case. Steele, proud and arrogant, leaned too heavily on the story of one star witness, a man named Travis Collins, who swore he saw Malik fleeing the scene of the crime. Travis's testimony was supported by a supposed perfect alibi that insulated Steele's own version of events. He claimed Malik was the only possible suspect because no one else could have been at the crime scene at that exact time. But Darius had been patient. He had bided his time, piecing together fragments of truth, watching as Steele smirked across the courtroom, confident that nothing could touch him. Then Darius found it, one overlooked text message. The jury leaned forward as Darius held up the enlarged image of a phone screen projected on the courtroom wall. "This," Darius said, his voice calm but firm, "is a time-stamped text message sent from the phone of Mr. Travis Collins, the prosecution's star witness, at 8:47 p.m., the exact time he claims he was standing outside Whitaker's market, watching Malik flee the scene." Gasps echoed through the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Darius continued, "this message was not sent from anywhere near the market. Cell tower data shows it was sent from the other side of town, nearly 7 miles away." The jury's eyes widened. Steele's face flushed red. "And what does this message say?" Darius asked, pacing slowly in front of the screen. He cleared his throat and read aloud. "Yo, I'm at Lisa's. Ain't no way I'm making it across town by 9. Handle that thing without me." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Darius turned back to the jury, his voice sharp as a blade. The prosecution's perfect witness. The prosecution's perfect timeline. The prosecution's perfect case. All of it destroyed by one text. Because if Travis Collins wasn't at Whitaker's market that night, then his testimony is nothing but a lie. And if his testimony is a lie, then the state's entire case against Malik Thompson collapses. For weeks, Malik had sat silently in the courtroom, his head bowed, his future hanging by a thread. But now, for the first time, he lifted his head high. His eyes glistened, not with fear, but with hope. The power had shifted. The same community that had whispered about him, branded him a criminal, assumed his guilt because of the color of his skin, now saw doubt where once they saw certainty. The same jury that avoided his gaze now studied him with new curiosity, new compassion. Darius felt the moment crackle in the air. He knew he had Steele cornered. The mighty district attorney, who had mocked him, belittled him, and thought himself untouchable, was now fumbling through papers, his hands trembling. "Objection!" Steele barked, his voice desperate. "This evidence is inadmissible." But the judge raised a hand. "Overruled. The evidence is properly authenticated. The jury will consider it." Steele's jaw tightened. He knew it was over. When the jury delivered its verdict, not guilty, the courtroom erupted. Malik's mother wept into her hands. Malik himself dropped his head, overwhelmed, before embracing Darius in a hug that spoke louder than words. Justice had finally broken through the fog of lies. But as the cameras flashed and reporters swarmed, Darius stepped aside. He wasn't thinking about glory. He wasn't thinking about his own victory. He was thinking about the deeper lesson buried beneath this trial, the lesson that the community, the jury, and even the arrogant Steele needed to hear. So, when the reporters asked him for a statement, Darius spoke slowly, his voice measured but powerful. "Tonight's verdict isn't just about Malik Thompson," he said. "It's about the truth. It's about the danger of assuming guilt before hearing the facts. And it's about how bias, whether it comes from community whispers or from people in power, can kill justice before it ever has a chance to breathe. We saw a man nearly lose his freedom, not because of what he did, but because of what people believed he did. And yet, in the end, one overlooked text exposed the truth. One small detail saved a man's life. So let this be a lesson. No matter how perfect a lie may look, no matter how powerful a liar may seem, the truth has a way of breaking through. You can bury it. You can try to silence it. But the truth will rise. And when it does, it will set people free. Weeks later, Steele found himself under investigation. It turned out Travis Collins had ties to Steele's office, and questions arose about whether the district attorney had pressured him into testifying. Steele's arrogance, once his greatest weapon, had become his downfall. And Malik? He walked free, but not unchanged. The scars of accusation lingered. The whispers in the neighborhood didn't vanish overnight. But now, when people looked at him, they also saw resilience. They saw a young man who had survived the system, and they saw a lawyer who refused to let him fall through the cracks. The irony was not lost on anyone. The same text message that Steele's team had overlooked, something so small, so ordinary, had turned the entire case upside down. It reminded everyone that no matter how carefully a person tries to weave lies, no matter how powerful they think they are, it only takes one crack for the whole facade to crumble. The story of Malik Thompson is not just about crime and justice. It is about faith in the unseen. It is about the patience of the underdog, the endurance of those underestimated, and the courage of those who refuse to be silenced. And most of all, it is about this. Never underestimate the power of truth, because in a world where lies can enslave, truth, even a single text message, can set you free.